Welcome to the Brand Gravity Show, where we explore the intersection between branding and psychology. I'm your host, Kaye Putnam, psychology-driven brand strategist. And if you are listening as we go live here over the holiday season, I am taking a break from our guest episode shows to share 2 solo episodes, this being the second. Last week, I shared a bit of my background and story. I highly recommend listening to that one if you haven't already. And in honor of New Year, New You season, New Year's season coming up, and all of the goal setting that's happening around this, I want to share the story of my quantum quarter. Now, this story, even if you're listening to it, I don't know, in the middle of April or whenever you listen to this, can change your life whenever you decide that you want to implement a big change. And I can't wait to share this framework, this process, the principles of this process with you so that you can apply it to your own goal setting and create the reality that you want to live in. I am a huge believer that we are agents of our own reality. We have agency over the world that we live in. We have a choice about how we interact with the world that's around us. And the choices that we make matter. I can't wait to tell you this story, but before I do, let me share the mind-blowing results. The first time I implemented the quantum quarter system or process into my life and into my business, I hit my first $50,000 month. Up until that point, I had only, I think my max had been $25,000 or $30,000 in revenue, and have done that multiple times since then. I lost 20 pounds and completely transformed the way that I felt. But let me back up because that didn't happen overnight. The story begins when my family was moving across country. We had actually just separated. My husband was in the military for 11 years and we had just left living in Italy for 3 years. We took a little hiatus in Minneapolis for 6 months and lived with my dear sister-in-law, Sarah, and we trained for this massive goal, this massive adventure that we had all signed up for. So Sarah, my husband Bobby, and I, and one of our dear cousins on that side of the family signed up for a trek, 14-day trek to Everest Base Camp. And we were on fire. We were doing, at our peak, 2 hours on the Stairmaster with a 25-pound pack on our back in our hiking boots. We were super fit. It was an amazing experience. One of the highlights of my life. Also a massive character building moment because I actually came down with a respiratory infection literally at base camp. So the entire walk down, every breath that I took felt like I was breathing fire into my lungs. And I had a fever. I was sick as a dog and there was no helping it. None of the over-the-counter medicines that I was taking was touching it, and I still had to walk 12, 13 miles per day with this infection. It was pretty miserable and such a great lesson in itself. That said, we had finished that amazing goal and adventure a few months prior, and we basically fell off the wagon when we got home. We were eating what we wanted, drinking what we wanted, and then my husband and I went through this whole recruitment process, and he got a job in High Point, North Carolina, where we currently live, and moved our family from Minneapolis to North Carolina. And we were living with our 2 children in a hotel, which sounds glamorous, like room service and breakfast served to you every day, all that good stuff. But our slide down from Everest continued, and I was nearing a very dangerous rock bottom. In all honesty, I felt lethargic, I felt puffy, I felt bloated, I was bordering on depressed. I was still doing a little bit here and there with my business, but it was basically put on pause during this big life change. So there wasn't a lot of revenue coming in. I was eating like crap, I was sleeping like crap, we weren't exercising, and even living in this very blessed position. We had the kids, we had the time off, it was during the summer, and Bobby had just gotten this new job and everything was good on the outside. And I felt terrible on the inside. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it was truly one of the lowest points in my life. And I knew something drastically needed to change. We were house hunting at the time, found a beautiful place, and we're moving in, right before school starts. We were really excited for this big shift, this big change that was happening. And I had read before, and I'd experienced before, that whenever you're going through a big shift in your life, you can actually manufacture a lot of additional changes because you're already shaking up a lot in your life. This goes against what some people say about not changing too much all at once, but I've actually found the opposite to be true, that when you are shifting, you can take advantage of the momentum of other changes and tack on other changes to them because you're already shifting your identity. You're already shifting the context of your life. So you can also decide to add more to that. Or even if you're not going through a big change, you're not moving into a new house, whatever it is, you can choose to create momentum by packaging together a series of shifts. The key to not making it overwhelming is not to expect too much in the beginning. So it's really important that you engineer this in the right way. And I'm going to get to talking about that in just a moment. So Bobby and I sat down. We both knew that we wanted to make a change. I had this built-in support system of my husband who is also going to do this alongside with me, which is a key success factor. I highly recommend if you're going through a shift, a change, a big goal-setting season, that you enlist help, whether that's in a group of like-minded humans, like self-development group. If you're an entrepreneur, be in a group of other entrepreneurs. If you have a partner that will support you, even better because you're like in the same physical space. So we sat down and we designed what I now call my quantum quarter. And some of the initial pieces that I knew that I wanted to build into this system were, one of the things that I learned when we trekked up Mount Everest is I was so amazed at how slow we walked. It was almost maddening how slow our Sherpas and our tour group insisted that we walk and that we took breaks. Like we had scheduled breaks, whether we were feeling tired or not. We had to stop, we had to drink tea, and that was that. And they explained to us as we were going along that if they didn't do this and if they rushed any part of the process, their success rate plummeted. So I knew that I wanted to take slow baby steps in a singular direction and trust that the results were going to come. And not pay attention to the results, not pay attention to that summit, and simply put my attention on putting one foot in front of the other. So that was one piece. Another piece that I knew was I needed to set the conditions to make my success as inevitable as possible. So I wrote out a list before I even got started, before I decided what my exact system was going to be, about the situation that I wanted to create in my life, like my ideal situation, that would help guarantee my success. So one of them, I already had Bobby there, which is amazing. Another one was I was feeling very lonely and isolated, and I knew I wanted to be in closer proximity to a group of ambitious entrepreneurs. So I decided right at that same time that I was going to join a certification and mentorship program and learn some new skills, reintegrate my business and my life with learning some new skills. So I enrolled in Lexi D'Angelo's Taboo certification. It wasn't known as that at the time, but it was basically a NLP with time therapy, hypnotherapy, and a few other modalities put into that certification. But most importantly for me, it was a group of amazing humans that were all working towards improving their business, improving their life, knowing themselves better, having a better toolkit to make change. So that absolutely was another key to my success. It's like, how can I surround myself with people that are going to normalize the results that I desire? How can I draft off of, or how can I borrow some momentum from people who are on a similar journey as me? I'm giving you some of the answers as we go, instead of saving them all to the end. But that was one of the keys. And then another piece was I had recently read James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, which is amazing. Highly recommend that book. And he talked about the British cycling team, how they went from being one of the worst cycling teams to literally the best. And the way that they did it was really interesting. They made a bunch of small changes to every factor possible, from the pillows to the shoes to the chains to the material of the bicycle and everything in between. And it wasn't any one of those things that contributed to the end result, but it was that accumulation effect, that compounding effect that happens. So I wanted to incorporate something of that nature as well. So I had baby steps. I needed to set conditions to ensure my success, so to succeed even in spite of myself. I was incorporating different elements. And this is what my quantum quarter ended up looking like. I had a list of high leverage habits that I was not insisting perfection on, but I was doing as much of them as possible. And then I had one break day per week. I borrowed this idea from Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Body book, where he talks about eating in a specific way for 6 days out of the week and then going ham on that 7th day so that you can appease the part of your psychology that hates being restricted and hates being told what to do. And I've run subsequent quantum quarters without that cheat day, and I've seen it work both ways. I've seen it work where that cheat day really helps, and then I've seen it where it causes me to derail and to go off of the track. So it may be a bit of an experimentation process, but that was how I set it up for the first time. I also knew that it needed to be longer than 30 days. So I've been experimenting with my health and my nutrition for a long time. I've done several whole 30s before my quantum quarter. And I knew that 30 days was great and I felt amazing, come day like 15 through 30, but that it wasn't enough to create a lasting and monumental change. So I decided right from the start that my quantum quarter was going to be 90 days long, not just 30 or not just 21. And more recent habit research I've heard supports this, that it's actually more related to repetition, not necessarily days. But if you were to assign days, it's more like 2 months that you need to really establish a habit and help it stick. So I created this list of high leverage habits which were these little tiny baby steps that I knew if I focused on them, it would only help me improve. So they were things like drink a liter of water before I drink my coffee, move my body for 5 minutes, meditate for 5 minutes, read or listen to a podcast for 10 minutes. Things that were too easy to make a lot of excuses about, but then also that they were the things that I knew that I needed to do, but just the little micro dose of that thing. Instead of trying to do everything perfectly every day, I gave myself that latitude of I'm going to have core habits that I do every day. And then I'm going to give myself that cheat day. And then also I'm going to give myself the ability to just pick from the buffet of habits each day. So I can mix and match and figure out what this was going to look like. And then the last thing that we did, and my husband and I, is that we sat down and we created a goal system. The way that we did it is we broke our goals into different categories, easy, medium, hard, just for the benefit of the other person, so that we had kind of a varying difficulty. Plus we had gradations of goals. So for example, I wanted to run, ultimately I wanted to be able to run a 7-minute mile again, but I was at like 10 minutes when we started our quantum quarter. So I had run a 9:30-minute mile, run an 8:30-minute mile, run an 8-minute mile, run a 7-minute mile, that kind of thing. And then once I listed all of the goals that I wanted to achieve, I wrote a separate list of an equal number of prizes. And those prizes were the types of things that just bring me joy that I don't normally indulge in. So like get a massage, you plan a date, in regards to my husband, get a pedicure. I can't think of all of them. But the fun part was the way that we gamified this is that my husband then got to go and match up which prizes went to which of my goals. And I did the same thing for him. So each time we hit one of those benchmarks of one of our goals, we got to win the prize that our partner assigned to that event. So all of this together Again, focusing on baby steps, which were those high leverage habits that were teeny tiny. So only 5 minutes, only 2 push-ups, whatever it is. Picking whichever amount that I wanted to do in any specific day, but then also having some hard guidelines. So my hard guidelines were related to my diet, what I was eating and drinking, aside from that cheat day. And then I had to do at least one thing to improve my business each day, and I had to do one thing to improve my life each day, because I wanted to activate that compounding effect that British cycling team had. So we had the high leverage habits, we had the time schedule, we had I actually spent a week before my official start date where I was really intentional about setting up and kind of like testing out and trialing some of my habits and adjusting them before I officially got started. So if I thought that I was going to do like a 5-minute cold shower each morning, which I didn't, but for example, if I was going to do that, I might have taken one cold shower in that test week, that trial week, and discovered that no, that habit really isn't for me. It doesn't make me feel good. I don't like it. Let's leave that off and not set myself up for failure from the beginning. And set the prizes, so gamify it, and then align your support. So however you can receive support, whether that's indirect in the form of like mentors from afar, like listening to motivational videos on YouTube or podcasts that light you up, or maybe it's people in your immediate vicinity, or maybe even like a remote type of situation. Figure out how you can keep yourself accountable and then do the thing. And the thing isn't that hard because it's just these little baby habits that you decided for yourself each day. And you made them purposefully easy if you're following the system. And you forget about the results. I mean, you track them, but you don't focus on them or judge the success of this quarter until after the quarter is done. And that's really key because each step feels insignificant until you're at that magnificent vista, that summit at 18,000 feet on the top of Kalapatar, if you're in the Himalayas like we were, to belabor that metaphor. And that is the Quantum Quarter. We do sprints inside of my Brand Clarity Collective. We stick to 30 days just because it's hard to keep a group engaged for a full 90 days. But it can be just the beautiful support that you desire to see some of those results. And we've had incredible results of students. We run those sprints twice per year. We did one in the fall this past year, and we'll do another one in the spring in 2023, and then so on as we continue. But as we're moving into this goal setting phase where it is top of mind for people, I encourage you to create your own reality, to dedicate a period of your life. I recommend 90 days. It's what worked for me, but that's not the important part of it. The principle is to dedicate a period of time to simply taking those baby steps each and every day, or more consistently, to becoming the type of person that you want to become. And the interesting thing was 30 days in, I was remembering, like, even as much as I say, just trust the process, take the baby steps, 30 days in, I was like, man, I haven't really seen many results. It's just been more of the same, essentially. I was feeling a little bit better, but I hadn't lost that much weight, maybe 2 or 3 pounds through, something of that nature. Business was basically what it had been when I started, and life was looking better, but it wasn't really, I wasn't seeing the results on the outside yet. But then, like I said in the beginning of this episode, by the end of the 90 days, everything snowballed. I had lost 20 pounds of that puffiness, that bloatedness, that heavy feeling that I had been carrying around. I was so the opposite of lethargic and depressed. I was on fire. I was energetic. I was magnetic. I had the biggest launch of my business to that point, generated incredible sales, and it was all due to this Quantum Quarter. It truly is magical. In addition to the sprints that we do in the Brand Clarity Collective, I also have a workshop that teaches this framework and provides some resources and templates for you to set up your own Quantum Quarter. I would love to hear your plan, your results when you get to the end of the your time period. And if you would like some support, I have that workshop either as a standalone offer, or you can get it inside of my Brand Clarity Collective, which has the full library of all of my courses. And you can implement this into your business. But I shared quite a bit here in this podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you enjoyed the motivation, and know that it's possible for you. Just, it's not all going to happen all at once. You have to focus on taking the right steps consistently. And I know that doesn't sound super sexy, but thankfully you're in control. You're in charge. You can make it sexy. You can give yourself prizes. You can truly design the life that you want to live, decision by decision. So go after it. Be unapologetic about being driven and ambitious and wanting to improve yourself, because it's so possible. And we get to be the person that we want to be. We get to create the life that we want to live. And I know that sounds cliche, but I've lived it and I've seen it happen for so many of my students when they go through the same process. So if you are listening in real time as we are launching this episode, Happy New Year. If not, happy today. Go out and be that person that you know that you can be. The world needs you at your best.